Welcome back to another football preview. I'm Andy Hewling, joined by Delaney Barrow, and we're going to break down the Auburn-Samford game, which will happen tomorrow at 11 a.m. on SEC Network. So, Delaney, what are your thoughts going into this game?
I think it'll be a pretty easy game for Auburn, more of a tune-up game in order to recover from Georgia last weekend and their heartbreaking loss, and also just prepare for the Iron Bowl next weekend.
Yeah, and Auburn is obviously a 7-touchdown favorite, like we talked about off the air. Do you think Auburn can cover the game? It's supposed to be or cover the spread. It's supposed to be nasty conditions out there, a lot of rain. Do you think Auburn will still have success?
I think they could, and especially now that their playoff hopes are pretty much gone. They're looking to achieve a 10-win season, which would include winning this weekend against Samford, the following weekend against Alabama, and then sometime in whoever their bowl game opponent would be.
Yeah, and do you think the pressure's kind of off Auburn now, that they can kind of relax, play loose, because they've got Samford, but then Alabama is kind of a game where it's just going to be playing for pride to win the Iron Bowl. Do you think the pressure has been taken off Auburn, or do they still have a lot to prove?
I think they still have a good amount to prove, especially because there's so many talented senior players who really want to get that final win against state rival, like Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson, two star defensive linemen who really want this win.
So Georgia was not a good game for Auburn until the fourth quarter when the Tigers made a comeback. What do you think Auburn has to learn from that game going into these final two games to help achieve maybe a 10-win season after what could be a bowl win?
Well, I think two really big takeaways were how well the Auburn offense worked with the 2-minute offense when Bo Nix and all of his conversions to first downs, that was really successful, and that gained those two back-to-back touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And then also Seth Williams leading the team in receptions with his 13 catches for a total of 121 yards. And I think that those two takeaways could really propel them forward through the rest of the season.
So you talked about a good point that Auburn's offense was really good in the 2-minute drill. Do you think that the offense would be more successful if they were faster like that? Because obviously, when they get a first down, it seems like the offense will move faster, but there's times where they're really slow to get a playoff. Do you think Auburn would be more successful if they're fast?
I think definitely, as can be seen in those two back-to-back touchdowns in the fourth quarter of the Georgia game, where there really was a sense of urgency because they only had that last quarter to try and overcome the Bulldogs' lead.
And Bo Nix quietly had a really good game. Do you think that was kind of a step in the right direction for him? Because he was able to throw for 245 yards. It wasn't like Georgia's defense was really containing him. It was kind of a case where the offense was crashing in the red zone and it was just not successful. But do you think that was kind of a step in the right direction for him?
I think it definitely was a step in the right direction. He had a great game, and he's definitely played more comfortably at home and improved throughout the season. And if he achieves 200 passing yards this weekend against Samford, he will become Auburn's all-time leading passer for freshman quarterbacks.
That's huge because obviously Auburn has not had a lot of freshman quarterbacks. There's a lot of experience in the ranks of previous Auburn quarterbacks. So now going into the Samford game, do you think it's just kind of everyone's looking towards Alabama? Do you think that Auburn will overlook that and it's just kind of like a practice game?
I don't think they'll overlook it, but I think they'll definitely take advantage of it to fix the mistakes made last weekend and also just recover, maybe put the second string in order to better prepare for the big game the weekend of the 30th.
Yeah, and so we're obviously going to talk about a lot more next week, but Alabama obviously on the horizon. What are your initial thoughts going into this game, and what do you think Auburn has to do to stop Alabama, who will be without Tua Tagovailoa as he went out with a hip fracture against Mississippi State?
I think that it'll be an exciting game. It'll definitely be closer now that Tua is out, but his younger brother should be stepping up in his place. And I think that Auburn will have a slightly better chance of beating them, but it'll still be exciting.
So yeah, Alabama will play Mac Jones and Tulia Tagovailoa, who are their backup quarterbacks. Do you think Mac Jones obviously has had to start a few times since Tua's been hurt with the ankle injury and now the hip fracture? You think he will have a tough time? But even though that he has played, he's had a lot of experience, but it hasn't been like a big game like this. Do you think that he'll have trouble down in Jordan-Hare Stadium?
I think he probably will, considering the success of Auburn's defense this year and just how tough they've been in the SEC and all around. So I think that will provide a good competition against him.
Yeah, for sure. And it will be a really interesting battle as these two teams face off. And speaking of the Iron Bowl, we will have a live coverage next week as Delaney and I and a whole host of others from student media, including the Plainsman and the Weagle, will be live from our studios as we break down the big game between Alabama and Auburn. So make sure you tune in at 9 o'clock on Eagle Eye TV Channel 6 and our YouTube live stream as well. So it should be a great time. We're really excited about that. Now, before we close our preview, let's go into basketball as they've been rolling. They're 5-0, and now they go to Brooklyn, New York, where they'll face off against New Mexico in the Legends Classic. Delaney, what have you seen out of the basketball team so far?
I think they've really started to gel since the very first game of the season. They're working together. It's a mostly new team, but they look to be playing together pretty strong so far.
And Isaac Okoro has been one of the leaders of the freshmen as he has had double-digit games for the past 3 games that he's played, including this previous game on Monday night where he was able to score 11 points against Colgate, including some emphatic dunks. And he's really shown that he can be the leader in this role for in the power forward role, and I have really been impressed with him. Who's a guy on the freshman team that you've really been impressed with?
I've really been impressed with Samir Dowdy. He had a career-high 33 points a couple weeks ago against Cal State Northridge, and since putting on his headband in South Alabama, he's averaged 21 points a game, 7 rebounds, and he's 60.6% from the floor.
Yeah, for sure. That headband might have given him some good karma later on down the road. But yeah, he's stepped up huge, providing that veteran leadership that was there last year that went to the Final Four. So Auburn will go into this game. The game will be shown on ESPN News at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon. So make sure you tune in. It should be a great environment up in New York, and hopefully Auburn will continue their unbeaten streak. Well, that's going to do it for us. I'm Andy Hewling, joined by Delaney Barrow, and we'll see you next week for the Iron Bowl show, which will be live at 9 o'clock.